Welcome back to the All MLB podcast, episode 2. I'm with Jarek Bozovic. My name's Aven Nurse. Jarek, how you doing?
Doing well, Evan. How are you?
I'm pretty good. Jarek, Spotify Wrapped came out today.
Dude,
Tell me about your Spotify Wrapped.
I haven't even checked it yet, to be
You
honest
didn't?
with you. But I can tell you my number one artist is going to be Post Malone.
It's gonna be
Great.
post.
It's going to be Post Malone. Who's your number one artist?
Mine was Kanye.
I can't blame you for that one. He's probably up in my top five also.
I'm a big Kanye fan in terms of his music.
Did you have podcasts on there too, or was it just artists?
It touched on the podcast at the end. Yeah.
I think I listened to too many podcasts. My minutes were a little crazy. So,
You know your wait. You said you hadn't checked it yet.
well, I just tapped through to see the podcast. I didn't listen to the music.
Okay,
I
okay.
didn't check the music part because I saw a Twitter feed where they're talking about their podcast listens, and I wanted to see what percentage I was in. So I skipped the music, but I saw that.
Who was your top podcast?
The Just Baseball Show,
Oh, that was mine
and
too.
then and actually it's the All MLB Pod, and then the Just Baseball Show.
All
Yeah,
MLB Pod, the best podcast on Spotify.
I've listened to it so many times.
I know. Me too.
Daily commuter.
Me too, man. All right. So we have a really exciting episode for you guys today. We plan on talking about some of the MLB awards that got announced since our last episode. We're going to go into free agency so far. There's been a couple trades. Then towards the back end of the episode, we're going to get into our free agency predictions with some exciting predictions about Yamamoto and Ohtani at the very end that we're really excited about.
Got some bold takes in there. So I mean, free agency predictions are so hard to predict. I mean, once one domino falls, it changes everything. So it's just more about having fun and seeing what we can predict that's right. But it'll be interesting.
For sure. And it's always fun to just be able to kind of predict here and not really have any consequences at the end because no one really cares if we get it wrong, but we get to say we're really smart if we get them right.
Exactly. And everybody just wants to see their team be linked to somebody. So if your team gets picked, I know you're going to enjoy it.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Should we get into the MLB awards that have gone down since our last episode?
Yeah, there was a lot of unanimous awards. Out of all the big ones, it was really only Blake Snell that wasn't unanimous, and he still even got 28 out of the 31st place votes. So not a lot of surprises this year, but you want to start it off with Rookie of the Year?
Yeah, sure. So NL Rookie of the Year, Corbin Carroll, AL Rookie of the Year, Gunnar Henderson. I don't think either of those were really that surprising.
No, coming into the year, they were both the odds-on favorite. And I mean, they proved it when they got their short sample in 2022, and they kept it rolling this year. They both had pretty crazy seasons, posting Bar Wars over sixes. So that's pretty elite seasons out of rookies.
Yeah, for sure. And then just some of the finalists for NL and AL, Kodai Senga and James Outman for NL Rookie of the Year. I'm a big James Outman fan. I had him in fantasy this year, but he was just way too streaky and couldn't compete with Corbin Carroll. Then AL Rookie of the Year, Tanner Beebe and Tristan Cassis.
Yeah, James Outman is one you Dodgers fans are going to have to live with. He's such a great player, but he is really streaky. So there's going to be some months where he's the best player on the planet, and then a month where he might have to be a platoon player. But he was really big for them in their outfield this year. And then Kodai Senga out of nowhere. I mean, I didn't know what people were going to expect out of him in his first year coming over, but after those first 2 months of figuring it out, he was insane. And if he would have done that all year, he probably would have got a Cy Young vote, or
Yeah,
at least
no,
be a finalist potentially.
for sure. And like honestly, I think it's just kind of creating that world where we have to put more respect on like other leagues outside of just the MLB systems.
No, definitely, and it's big for this market too with Yamamoto and there's a few other Japanese starters coming over, but you got to put a lot of respect on them, and they're definitely going to earn their money. It's not something that's up in the air anymore. I think we can see that the pitchers at least are going to transition really well.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
In the American League though, Tristan Casas, and I know it's hard for pitchers, Tristan Casas is a first baseman, and then Tanner Bybee's a pitcher, and it's always hard for pitchers to win. I think they need to split it up into two awards, like an offense and a pitcher award. But Tristan Casas had a really good year. I know he started off slow, but in that second half, he went nuclear against righties. So he'll be a big bat in that lineup next year for the Red Sox.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to see that for sure. And Bibby had a great year. He's not Gunnar Henderson. He's just not going to
No,
do that.
no. But he had a really good year, and he'll be really exciting for the Guardians next year. So he'll be a fun watch for them.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to see what the Guardians do here in this free agency. We get into that a little bit later, but I actually do see Guardians adding a piece.
Interesting. I kind of see them shedding some players.
We got
That'll
a
be
few
that'll be
names
fun to
there,
talk
I
about
guess.
later.
Yeah. Uh,
Um,
you want to
you want to
introduce
move
Cy
into
Youngs?
MVP or Cy Young?
Let's do Cy Youngs first, then we can get to MVP.
Awesome. So Blake Snell wins his second Cy Young award, this time in the National League, and then Garrett Cole finally wins his first. It's kind of surprising because he's had such good years, but it's good to see him finally get one.
Yeah, no, I mean Garrett Cole when he first won it, I just saw all these feeds of like the different votings throughout the years, and he's always there, but he's never quite been enough to quite get it, sort of thing. But he's always been in that conversation, so it was good to just see him finally win one.
Yeah, remember that year he had in Houston where he lost to his teammate Verlander,
Yeah,
and he went on that crazy stretch where he went like 18-0 over like a 4 month span. I'm just so surprised he didn't win it that year, but
no, in my opinion, he was robbed that year, but
yeah, he definitely was. But yeah, Garrett Cole went 15-3. So he's just a bulldog on the mound. And I know, wins and losses aren't a big thing, but he threw 209 innings. So he's always out there. And he led the league in hits per nine at 6.8. So he just kind of shoves when he's out there. And it was a really good season for him.
no, it was awesome, and it's really scary when it comes to Garrett Cole to think about what the Yankees would have looked like without him. Because
Right.
that
He
would
was
have
the
just been
only person to show up to that field every single day. I mean, he's realistically probably the only person on that team that didn't spend time on the injured list. So he's huge for that team.
exactly. And then Blake Snell, we touched on last episode. We know he's an anomaly when it comes to pitching and just all the walks, but he just refused to allow runs, and he was the best at it this year.
Yeah, he really was. I mean, he had 11.7 K per nine, which is kind of crazy. He's almost striking out 12 guys every time he goes out on that mound. And he had 234 strikeouts in 180 innings, which I was surprised about when I read that number. I didn't think he was that close to 200. So, I mean, he was consistent out there taking the rubber every fifth day. So, it's a really good year for him.
Exactly. No. And then finalists for NL Cy Young and AL Cy Young. NL, we got Zach Gallen and Logan Webb. And then AL, we have Kevin Gausman and Sonny Gray.
I love Logan Webb. I'm really happy that he got a vote. And I feel like even though he was a Cy Young finalist, I still feel like he's super underrated. Like I
No,
knew we were going to make that all MLB sneaky team, and I was preparing my roster a little bit before the awards came out. And when he finished top three, I was kind of upset because I was like, "Oh well, can I throw this guy on my team still or not?" And
it's
I don't
really
think I
hard to put him
can,
on
but
that sneaky team now for sure. But
hey, that's my guy, man. He's nasty, and I mean he did it once again, so he had a really good year.
I think among like the average MLB viewer too, he is a sneaky pitcher because like I was telling my dad, I was having a conversation with him about Logan Webb, and he had no idea he was that good. He had like barely heard of him.
No, nobody really knows how good he is, and he's one of those guys that throws a lot of innings as well. And I don't know. I think he had a low threes ERA, but in years past, he had a sub three, and so he's put together a few really good years in a row for San Francisco. And I know he got rewarded with a big contract. I believe it was last off season, so that's really good for him.
Yeah, for sure. Any of the other Cy Young guys you want to touch on, or should we get into MVP?
I think we got to move over to the big dogs in the MVP.
Go on over to the big dogs. All righty.
There were
So
some crazy seasons in baseball this
I
year.
know, and I think going into it, just the same as all the other awards, there were no surprises. NL MVP Ronald Acuna Jr. and AL MVP Shohei Ohtani.
Yes, again, both unanimous. So no real surprises. I'm gonna be honest. I know Mookie Betts had a really great season. I'm surprised somebody didn't throw him one vote though. I thought maybe one of the Dodgers writers would have given him one, even though Acuna was by far the most deserving. I could have seen it though.
I think Acuna just had one of those years where it's just someone's going to raise an eyebrow at you if you don't give him that vote.
Exactly. It's kind of like the not voting for Jeter and all. You can't be that one guy.
Exactly.
Everybody's just gonna clown on you. But Ronald hit 337 with 41 bombs and 73 stolen bases.
It's like that's the type of stuff you do on MLB The Show My Career. like the rookie.
Yeah, well, playing on rookie mode, it's unfair. But yeah, the first ever 40-70 season.
I think it was first ever like 40-60 and 40-50,
Well,
right?
it was the first ever 40. I think was it first ever 40-50 also?
I think so. Yeah. No, I think it was 40-50,
Yeah, I
40-60.
mean, once he got to, I wasn't sure if he was going to get to 40 bombs. He was at that stretch where he was at 30 bombs, but those last few weeks, he went really crazy hitting those last few home runs. So it's just an insane season for him. I mean, he posted an 8.2 WAR and 162 WRC plus. So for those of you that don't know, 100 is league average, so you're 62 points better than league average.
Exactly. Yeah. And just, yeah, I mean, what else can we say about him? Just had an insane year. And then we get into Shohei Ohtani,
Oh, the unicorn.
the the unicorn. I mean, if he stays healthy and continues, like I know he's got Tommy John surgery right now, he's recovering, but if
Yeah.
he's able to pitch at 80% of what he was at for the majority of the season, I think he goes down as the greatest baseball player of all time.
Oh,
If he
definitely.
continues that throughout his
And
career.
talent wise, for sure, he is. And I don't think there's really a case behind it. And like you were saying with his pitching, he had 167 Ks and 132 innings pitched. I mean, that guy's just a strikeout machine, and I want to see him put it together for a full year because he could have had, 250 Ks in a season realistically. I mean, it depends how many innings he's out there for, but I mean, he had 142 ERA plus while also slashing 305, 412, 654, 54 home runs on the year. It's just insane. Or sorry,
Exactly.
44 home runs on the year.
And it's really just a shame that for the Angels, he had to work as hard as he was working for them, and then he gets hurt. Like,
Yeah.
I remember the week leading up to before he got hurt, there was all these things about him coming out of games early. He was having like spasms and stuff like that, and everyone was looking at the Angels to like sit him down for a little bit, and they just kept running him out there.
No,
And
you just knew he needed to be sit down for a little bit. And I mean, he was out there every day. He was the only person doing anything on that team because Trout was hurt all year.
exactly,
You would see those games where Shohei Ohtani goes 4 for 4 with the grand slam and throws 6 innings of 1-run ball, and the Angels lose 5-4.
I know. No,
It's like,
it was absolutely insane. Like it reminded me a lot, sort of thing of oh, shoot.
well, while you're thinking on it, whatever
Yeah,
team ponies up for him, he's gonna get an insane contract. I know he's hurt, and that some people are gonna say that might lower his contract a little bit, but either way, I still expect it to be record breaking. And if he goes to a contender, which he says he wants to, I'm excited to see him in the playoffs.
exactly. And what I was thinking was it reminded me a lot of DeGrom a couple seasons ago when he kept having insane starts for the Mets and they would keep losing anyways. It was the same sort
Yeah.
of thing where it was one guy showing out for his team and the rest of the team just not helping whatsoever.
Yeah, I think that was the year when he was also like hitting still, and he was hitting really well. But wasn't that the year when he won the Cy Young, but his win-loss record was really like
Yeah,
he basically
that's
was 500, which I'm so happy that he won that year because it just kind of proves that wins don't matter for
yeah.
a
I
player.
mean,
Like,
win-loss record
can't control it.
is not a pitcher stat; it's a team stat.
Exactly. So I mean, people don't throw it out the window, but it's something that like when we're looking at a pitcher, we just need their stats and kind of throw the win-loss out. Because the pitchers aren't throwing 9 innings anymore like they did in the 1920s. They're not controlling the entire game. So
Exactly. And unless you're Shohei Ohtani, you're also not hitting. So you're not creating offense for yourself either.
exactly. So no other pitchers contributing in the win-loss offensive wise. So they're not Ohtani.
Yeah. And then NL MVP, we already touched on Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman for other finalists. And then AL MVP, Corey Seager, Marcus Semien were other finalists as well.
Yeah.
And
Marcus
I got to say
Semien.
this real quick. I think Shohei Ohtani gets hurt about a month earlier. There's more of a conversation for Corey Seager.
No, definitely. Corey Seager, if he would have played a full 162, he would have put up a WAR in the eights as well. And that guy had one of the best offensive seasons for a shortstop ever.
Exactly.
And if Ohtani moves to the NL, I mean, he has to be the favorite for next year. His bat just plays so well in Texas, and he's one of the best bats in all of baseball. Marcus Semien, though, I don't know if he should have been top 3, but
He just had a great regular season where he was there every day.
Yeah, I mean, he played all 162. So you have to give him credit for that.
Exactly. No, he was
Um,
on one of the best teams, and he was there every day. You have to give him credit for that.
you do. And he stepped up because, Corey Seager missed quite a few games. So he was big for that Texas team all year long. But shout out to Matt Olson. Also, I know he finished fourth in the NL, but 54 bombs, 140 RBIs, an insane season. So that was awesome for him to see after his first season in Atlanta. That was a little rough.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking
So,
of Atlanta, they've made some trades so far since we last talked.
yeah.
Do we
So
want to
they
talk
had
about?
you want to go over them real quick?
Yep. So they traded away Nick Anderson and Cal Wright for Jackson Core and cash with the Royals. And then they also acquired Aaron Bummer in a trade with the White Sox where they sent away like 3 or 4 pieces in that too.
Yeah, they traded 5 guys for Aaron Bummer,
Yeah.
which is absolutely crazy. I mean, you're clearing a lot of spots. You have to think that they're gonna do something big. And Aaron Bummer, I think, is going to be absolutely nasty on that team next year. I know he didn't have the best year, but he was on the White Sox. Everybody knows what went wrong with the White Sox. It's a fluke year. It doesn't matter. He's going to be disgusting for the Braves.
No, for sure. And it's just clearly Atlanta trying to make sure they get the guys that they want for next year.
Exactly. I mean, they had some players like Kyle Wright that they saw weren't going to be part of the future, and they were able to get rid of him for a piece that they think can help them go win another World Series.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a few more awards I want to touch on real quick. We have the
Yeah.
Comeback Player of the Year award, as well as the Reliever of the Year awards were just announced. So Devin Williams won it in the National League, while Felix Bautista won the Reliever of the Year in the American League. Both of those guys were absolutely disgusting. I think Felix Bautista had a 16K per nine, or over a 16K per nine, which is just absolutely gross. And I know he was getting talks about being in the Cy Young votes before he had went out with Tommy John.
Yeah. No, I mean,
Uh,
he was just like the guy throughout the majority of the year, I think.
oh, definitely. And Devin Williams with his airbender is just absolutely disgusting. Um, and then moving on to the comeback player of the year, Liam Hendricks. It was a really good story to see him come back. He beat cancer, and unfortunately, he also had Tommy John in August. But it was just good to see him back on the baseball field, and it's exciting to hopefully have him back soon.
Yeah, no, I mean, you just love seeing stories like that where you just forget about the game and you realize that it's real life sort of thing and people face that type of stuff. So to see him come back and just be competitive in general at a professional level was really cool to see.
Yeah, and his entrance the first game back was awesome.
Yeah, no,
So
for
that
sure.
was really cool to see. And then in the NL, Cody Bellinger. He obviously won the MVP in 2019 and followed that up with 2 down years, or 3 if you want to count the COVID year. I know that one was short, so it's not really counted by everybody, but he put up a 4.4 WAR and slashed 307, 356, and 525 with 26 pumps on the year. So really cool bounce back season for him.
Yeah, no, for sure. And baseball's better when he's hitting stuff out of the park consistently.
Mm-hmm.
He's just got one of those swings that's just fun to watch. I know the batted ball data type stuff suggests that maybe his stats say he hit better than he actually did.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I know you're just itching to touch on that.
Dude, that was one of my. So we came in with 2 bold takes that I had for you. It's Cody Bellinger's season all luck.
No,
And the team that signs him,
you can't say that.
the team that signs him, are they going to regret it?
No,
Let me. So his expected batting average, 268. He hit 307. He slugged 525. His expected slugging, 434. He was 27th percent in barrels. That's the bottom 27th percentile. Bottom 10% in hard hit rate. 33% in chase rate. So he chased. He walked here. He didn't whiff a lot, which was good, but he also didn't walk. He was 36th percentile in walk. So all of his underlying data suggests he did better. He performed better than he should have.
all you can say is he performed how he performed, is what I would argue.
And
You
he's
can
going to
say
get
the
paid for. He's going to
projections
get paid for what he did,
exactly,
what
and
he could have done.
I think he's going to have a lot of confidence going into next year, and it's just going to continue to build. We might not ever see that sort of 2019 Cody Bellinger ever again. I don't just the way he's swinging. I like you could see back then his back wasn't going to be able to take that
Yeah.
much power, sort of thing, forever. But I definitely think you can expect like a 280 batting season from him going
hmm
into next year.
It was
Which
impressive to see him hit over 300.
exactly. So a 280 would be just great for him.
And I think he's one of those guys, and we'll get into it later with free agent predictions, but I think he needs to pick a good ballpark. I think he played really well with the park in Chicago and Wrigley. So I think that is going to factor in maybe a little bit into his decision. The other take I had for you, Blake Snell just won his second Cy Young. Does that make him a Hall of Famer?
Not yet.
22,
Not yet.
22 people in history have won multiple Cy Youngs. He was the 22nd.
Are the 21 all Hall of Famers?
Not all of them. Quite a few of them are actually active. Max Scherzer, Verlander, Kershaw. But you do have most of them are all currently in the Hall of Fame. So
Yeah.
I mean,
And those
is
three are all Hall
enough?
of Famers too.
Yeah,
The
they're
three
all either in the Hall or future Hall of Famers, except for maybe two or three of them. And one of those is because of steroids. So
yeah, keep them out.
yeah, because it was what with Roger Clemens was 7.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think
I
it's an interesting case. I agree with you.
exactly.
He's not a Hall of Famer yet. Just because the years in between the Cy Youngs weren't crazy good. I think if he does put together a few more good seasons, those two Cy Youngs will give him a really good case to get in, though.
Exactly. No, I think it makes it so there's an argument for him now.
Definitely,
He,
definitely.
he
It's
needs
just
to he needs to continue forward, but it's opened the door.
for sure. He's on the doorstep now, so we'll see. I mean, he's going to probably sign for 5 to 5+ years, so he's got quite a bit of time to prove it still.
For sure. Yeah.
Awesome. So those are the two fun little takes that I had. And going along with free agency before we get to our predictions, there's a few interesting DFA candidates because we had the 40-man deadline that just passed. Brandon Woodruff of the Brewers was released. And it makes sense. He was on his last year before being a free agent, and he's going to miss a majority, if not all of the year due to surgery.
Yeah, no, I think we've talked about this a little bit just off of this. Uh, it's just he's gone for them. There's no reason to have him on that. He's gonna walk, so there's no reason to waste a roster spot.
Exactly. He was going to make a lot of money to just do nothing for them. I mean, talk about that Brewers pitching staff. We went from Corbin Burns, Freddie Peralta, Brandon Woodruff, and then they had another top prospect that didn't pan out as well. But I mean, now you got talks of Burns being traded, Woodruff's gone, and now it's just Peralta. I don't know what happened to that three-headed monster.
They didn't win. If you don't win, people don't want to stick around.
Exactly. And they ruined that relationship with Burns, it seems like last what do you call that?
Last off season.
Yes, last offseason when they were doing the yes. But Cal Quantrill was released from the Guardians as well. That one hurts for some of you that may know, but he was signed by the Guardians, so he got picked. Or I'm sorry, he was signed by the Rockies, so he got picked up pretty quickly. So the Rockies are getting a good one, hopefully, if he can pitch.
Rockies see that Cal Quantrill's the goat.
He is the go. They know. They just know. Other than that, there wasn't anybody too big. The Cardinals released catcher Andrew Kisner, which he'll probably get some money in the offseason. He was a good backup for them, but this catching class is so thin that he just jumps to the top. I mean, the only other one, there's really no other catchers on the market this offseason.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's kind of interesting that there's a pretty wide variety. I feel like, except for in the catcher market.
Yeah. The position player class isn't crazy deep. It's got some nice guys at the top, but it definitely falls off quick.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think all of our honorable mentions for
All but one.
free agency. All of our honorable mentions for free agency are position players too. So we kind of just wanted to touch on that a little more too, clearly.
But we're hoping to get this out a little bit earlier before some of the free agents signed, but we already had quite a few free agents signed. Just today, Luis Severino and Joey Wendell signed with the Mets. So this Uncle Steve's making some moves already.
Exactly.
Aaron Nola stays with the Phillies on a 7-year, $172 million deal.
Yep. No, we have Gray to St. Louis, big St. Louis guy, 3-year deal
Yeah.
for 75. Lynn to St. Louis, 1-year deal. Gibson to St. Louis, 1-year deal.
Yeah.
I noticed on the Gibson contract, there's like a ton of performance incentives. Does Lynn have the same thing?
So I don't know as far as incentives. He does have an option. They both have options for a second year. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how they do that. But I wouldn't be surprised if Lynn had incentive bonuses as well.
Yeah.
The Royals also signed Garrett Hampson, just a little utility player. But the Reds got a pretty good reliever in Emilio Pagan. They're paying him $16 million over 2 years, which actually makes him the highest paid player on the Reds
Yeah.
at $8
No,
million a year.
it's are the Reds ever gonna pay like
No,
actual money?
I mean, hey, I might have him signing one of the free agent guys down below, but we'll see that in a minute.
There we go.
Aaron Nola had some reports of maybe getting some more money from both the Dodgers and the Braves, but he chose to stay in Philly, which to me makes sense because that's all he's ever known. But would you have wanted him on the Dodgers, or could you have seen him on the Braves?
I mean, he's a great pitcher, and I think the Braves would have been more likely, but I'm happy he stayed with the Phillies because the Phillies are such a likable team. Like, I don't know many players on that roster that I don't like. And
He's definitely
it's
really
fun to
good.
watch those sort of Philadelphia characters there.
Mm-hmm. He's one of those guys like Garrett Cole. And you can't. There's not a lot of them in the league, but he goes out there 200 innings every year, and I know his ERA was a little bit higher than normal, but I mean, you can't complain when somebody's giving you close to 200 innings each year. That if you're going to get close to a 4 ERA, it's really worth the money.
Exactly. No.
But
Speaking of, hold on, let me just before we get into sort of free agent stuff, I got one thing for you. What do you think about the Dodgers hiring Nelson Cruz as an advisor today?
think he's going to advise those outfielders to play in. If you know what I'm saying.
No, when I
I
first saw
don't know
that,
because I don't know what he's advising.
yeah,
Like, what's he in charge of? Is he just helping with offense? Like, I mean, is he
I
going
would
to be
imagine
like the hitting side of
he's a
the
hitting
game?
coach. Yeah,
I think it's a good signing. I mean, it's probably a future manager in the game of baseball. I mean, he was the player manager for the DR and the WBC, I believe. So I think that's a good signing for them.
exactly. No, and to be honest, when I first saw it, I thought it was about to be like Juan Soto news because I just saw the big Padres jersey of
Oh,
Nelson
really?
Cruz. Yeah,
Yeah, that would have been crazy. Well, I was listening to John Heyman report today, and he thinks both Soto and Ohtani will find new homes before the winter meetings, which start on December 3rd.
okay, so
So he thinks those are going
it's
to
like
move
4 days
quick.
away.
Exactly. Yeah, soon. So hopefully we have something like that to talk about next time.
Exactly, that would be really fun.
I don't know if you saw with the Sonny Gray deal though. His contract is very backloaded. He's only getting paid 10 mil year one.
Really?
Mm-hmm. So going into the year, the Cardinals had a projected roughly 60 million. Each year they like to keep the 40-man payroll around 200 million. That's what it was projected at last year. They just didn't get to it because of trading guys away at the deadline. So with that projection, they had about 60 million to spend. And they've only spent about 33 now. So they still have lots of room to go and get somebody. So
No, and
I'm just
I think that's
saying.
kind of a good little segue into our next section where we're talking about free agency predictions.
Yeah, so we're gonna run you through our top 10 free agent players, and then we each have 2 honorable mentions. So it's really gonna be 14 different guys for you.
Yeah, and so I think we should do honorable mentions first, and then we'll start with 10 and work our way up.
Yeah. I'm gonna kick it off with Japanese left-handed pitcher Shoto Imanga. He's coming over alongside Yoshi and a few other guys from Japan, so it's a pretty exciting international class this year. But I have the possibility or the best fit teams being the Red Sox, the Mets, the Dodgers, the Cubs, and the Rangers, and a little dark horse of the Cincinnati Reds, like we were previewing earlier. But I don't have him going to the Reds. I have him signing with a 5-year deal with the Texas Rangers. So I think the Rangers are going to lose a piece in free agency, and we'll get to that later. But he's the guy that can slot right behind Eovaldi, Scherzer, DeGrom when he comes back. And I think that doesn't put too much pressure on him to be a number 2. I think he could be a really good number 3 through 5 in this league with the upside of a 2 or a 1 like Senga, like we saw. So I think a very similar deal to what Senga got. And I think he'd be a really good fit on that Texas roster.
Yeah, no, I don't hate that pick at all. I think that would be a great fit. You can never have too much pitching, especially when you're coming off of a World Series. I don't hate that pick at all.
Exactly. So you want to go to your first honorable mention?
Sure. So my first pick is Tim Anderson for honorable mentions. I have him going to the Dodgers.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I don't think the White Sox are going to want to re-sign him, to be honest, because they have prospect Colson Montgomery, who is their number 1 prospect.
And they just signed Paul DeYoung.
Exactly. So I think the White Sox are done with him. And I didn't see many other teams attached to Tim Anderson. And Dodgers have a great track record of turning around players that have bad seasons and turning them into really sort of good offensive players. I see him primarily playing at second base, so Mookie can go back out to right full time, and then he can play shortstop to take some stress off of Lux.
No, without a doubt. I mean, look what they just did with Hayward, who they just re-signed as well.
Exactly.
And Tim Anderson just a year ago was one of the most marketable players in the game. So I don't know what happened last year, but if the Dodgers could get him for cheap, that could be an insane steal midway through next year. We could be looking back on it and be like, how did anybody let this guy get away?
You want to go on to your next guy?
Yeah. The next one I have is Rhys Hoskins, coming off, I believe it was an ACL tear. So I assume he's probably going to get like a 1-year deal, just kind of a prove it deal. But I could see him signing with the Cubs, the Brewers, the Mariners, Pirates, or the Marlins. Those are the teams that I could see him. But I have him signing with the Chicago Cubs. The Cubs spent big on a manager, so it looks like they're going to be big players this offseason. And their projected opening day first baseman is Matt Mervis, who I do really like as a prospect, but he did struggle in his few appearances last year. Mervis is a lefty masher. Well, he's left-handed, so he mashes righties. And I could see Hoskins coming in playing first base / DH. And then you have Mervis DHing against righties and getting some opportunities at the big league level to take over the following year.
Okay, yeah. No, I mean, I see that happening. I don't mind that at all.
I think he could be a good fit in the over in Chicago. So,
yeah. No, I'm just right now I'm trying to find my next pick's team sort of that they've been attached to because I forgot to write that down in my notes actually.
You got Teoscar Hernandez?
Yes, exactly. I have Teoscar Hernandez as my other honorable mention. I'm actually struggling to find it. Do you have it?
Yeah, I can pull it up real quick.
Yeah.
I could see him going back. I mean, if you just want to touch on it a little bit, I could see him going back to the Blue Jays. I do not see the Mariners signing him again.
Really?
I think they're moving on. I don't think it was the best tenure in Seattle. Not that he did bad. I just think he was too streaky for them.
Yeah. That was my pick was the Mariners. So they have him attached to the Brewers, Mariners, and Mets. And I talked to our friend, Henry Black, and he doesn't I trust him on the Mariners stuff a bit more than myself. He sees Teoscar being back there.
Really?
Yeah.
I also talked to a friend. Shout out Henry Gibbs. He sees them moving on for a different power bat, which we'll talk about later.
So there's a little bit of a ripple in the Mariners.
Hey, I mean, there's a lot of places they could go. That's why these predictions are so fun.
Exactly. No, I just think that the Mariners need to build around their stud J-Rod, and I don't mind Teoscar out there with him in the outfield.
Definitely, they need some more bats in that lineup. You know, they have J.P. Crawford, who had an insane year last year, Cal Raleigh, but you definitely got to build around Julio. So they need another bat to support those guys.
Exactly.
But we're gonna jump into the top 10. The first player is Eduardo Rodriguez.
Yep, no, and this guy is attached to Reds, Orioles, and Tigers. Who's your dark horse pick for this guy?
I picked the Twins as the dark horse. They've already lost two pitchers, Sonny Gray and Kenta Maeda. So I know they want to cut payroll, but I mean they've already lost two guys, so signing one guy wouldn't be a big influx for them.
Exactly. No, I don't mind that. My own personal pick for this guy is the Cardinals, actually,
Oh,
because
I
like you
want
said, they have spending money left, and it's another pitcher for you guys. Since you guys have plenty of offense, you just need better pitching, I think.
yeah. The Cardinals definitely got better in the regular season, but they need another top of the line guy for if they make the playoffs. Because Gray's great, but you don't want Landon Gibson throwing innings in the playoffs. You
Exactly.
need that number two because Michaelis, if he rebounds back to how he was in 2022 or 2021, that's a fine number three. But you definitely need a number two. My prediction for Eduardo Rodriguez, though, was Cincinnati. The Reds have a lot of young pitchers, and they just kind of need a veteran in their rotation. So I think Cincinnati could be a good landing spot for him. But they just kind of need a mentor, so that's why I have him going there.
Okay. Yeah. Number nine, prospect or free agent, we have Jorge Soler. He's got Marlins, Mariners, Cubs, dark horse, Tigers. Who was your pick for this guy?
I have him going to the Detroit Tigers. I see him leaving Miami. I think Detroit needs a big bat in that lineup. They have Torkelson, they have Green, they have a few other young bats, and then obviously they have Javier Baez. But I think he could be somebody that could plug into the lineup, give Riley Green, Torkelson some protection, and they have a chance to win that division next year. I mean, Cleveland and the Twins both haven't done anything yet. I know it's still super early, but they were close at number three last year. So I think they could take a step forward and make that push, and I think he would be the bat to do it.
Yeah, I actually have the Cleveland Guardians. Pick them up. I mean, Guardians just did not hit for power at all this year. And if they get that little bit of power extra, which Jorge Soler is more than a little bit of power,
Oh yeah.
I think that helps them take a big step forward.
No, the Guardians definitely need some offense, and they traded away Bell because he wasn't doing anything for them last year. But they need a big bat like Soler, so he would be really helpful for them as well. At number 8, we have Matt Chapman. He's been linked to the Mariners, the Cubs, the Blue Jays, as well as the Diamondbacks, even though the Diamondbacks did just make a trade for a third baseman.
Yeah, no. My pick for him is Blue Jays. I see him staying there, and he's gonna just bounce back this year, I think, and he's gonna have a home there.
Yeah, it's hard for me to see him going anywhere else besides the Blue Jays, but I have him heading to Chicago as well. I
Okay.
have him picking up Reese Hoskins as well as Matt Chapman. I mean, the Cubs have been linked to Ohtani as well as Yamamoto, so you know they're looking to spend big. Um, and Chapman, though he struggled at the end of the year, his bat was scorching hot at the beginning of the season. So you're paying mostly for the glove. I mean, he has a two-time platinum glover, but I think the Cubs are going to shore up their infield for the corner infield for next season, and that would make a really good defense with Nico Horner at second, Dansby at short, and Chapman over at third.
Yeah. No, I see them getting. I could see a world where the Cubs get Chapman if
I
they
think
don't sign one of those bigger agents.
exactly, and I mean that's where the dominoes fall, and that's why these predictions are so hard to get right. Because if they were to get Ohtani, that's probably all they get, right? I mean, that's a lot of money.
Is it all they get? I
Well,
think
I don't
teams want to spend right now, to be honest.
They do want to spend. If you're spending 8 million a year on a manager, you want to spend.
Exactly. Number seven, we have Jung Hoo Lee. He's been connected to the Yankees, Mariners, Giants, and Cubs. Who do you have picked here?
I have Lee signing with the Giants. And I originally I wanted to put him with the Yankees, but the Yankees are so connected to Soto that I feel like if they get Soto, they would transition from an outfielder to more of that pitcher because they're also been connected to Yamamoto. So I have him going to the Giants. He's a glove and contact first outfielder. He did have 23 home runs in 2022, only 6 last year before going down with an injury. but I could see him being a really good leadoff hitter for them because he does walk more than he strikes out. And I could see him just living in Triple's alley out there.
No, I mean, this is where we agree actually, is I have Giants as well for the pick. And everything you just said is the exact reason. And to me, he just feels like a player that the Giants like. Like
Yeah.
that's the type of player Giants like to pick.
No, definitely. And the Giants have missed out on a lot of superstars recently. I mean, they missed out on Judge last year, Correa last year as well. So they have to get somebody, and I think Lee's the guy they're finally able to snag.
For sure. Is it
Um,
7 next?
that was number 7. Moving on to number
Okay.
6, we have Jordan Montgomery, left-handed pitcher, formerly of the Texas Rangers. He's been linked to his former clubs, Rangers, Cardinals, Yankees, but also the Red Sox and the Cubs.
Yeah. And for this guy, I have him going to the Cubs. And Cubs are looking to spend and need pitching. So I don't mind Jordan Montgomery going to the Cubs at all.
The Cubs are going to be a popular name this offseason, linked to a lot of players. I have Montgomery going to the Red Sox. I think he could be a big add to that rotation. It's currently led by Chris Sale and Brian Bale. Chris Sale, I mean, obviously deals with a lot of injuries, and Brian Bale is an up-and-coming star, so he could just be a guy they could plug in their consistent innings because he's just super consistent. But the reason I have him going to Boston is his wife is a dermatologist, and she just started her residency at a Boston hospital. So she's not moving anytime soon.
Wow, I didn't know we were digging that deep. That's some like
So I
doctor
mean
level
that
stuff.
was in the headlines this morning. I saw it on Twitter.
That's kind of crazy.
So I mean it could be a reason. I mean it like similar to Dansby Swanson, his Dansby's wife plays soccer in Chicago. I mean Boston. I mean Jordan could just find his home in Boston with his wife over there.
Yeah, no, I wish I had that information. I probably would have changed my pick.
It's good. It's a good source.
Yeah.
Uh, moving on to number 5. The best reliever on the market, Josh Hader. He's been linked to the Rangers, the Phillies, the Braves, and the Red Sox. And I kind of have it's not my prediction, but the dark horse of the Diamondbacks being in on him as well.
Yeah, no, for here, I see him going to the Rangers. I think Rangers want to add a little more firepower to go on with Jose Leclerc and the bullpen back there. And you're not going to have any more firepower in a single guy more than Josh Hader, to be honest.
Definitely. And sorry about that. We agree once again. I also have him going to the Rangers. Texas really only had one weak spot on their team last year. I mean, I know their rotation had a lot of injuries, but overall it was good all year long. Their offense was one of the best in baseball all year. So I think if they add Josh Hader to that bullpen with Leclerc and maybe Chris Stratton's back there as well, but maybe another guy, they really don't have a weakness on that team.
No, exactly. That would if they got Hader, it'd be just look out to the rest of the league.
Yeah, it'd be pretty scary going forward.
Yeah.
Moving on to number 4, a guy we've talked about already, Cody Bellinger.
Yeah, and this guy's been linked to the Cubs, Yankees, Giants, and dark horse I think would be the Mariners. My pick for him is Yankees. I think there's been a ton of connections there. I think it's largely dependent on if the Yankees make a trade for Juan Soto, because there's been a lot of talks about that. But the Yankees need to look to add offense in the outfield, I think. And Bellinger, I think, is a great spot for that, especially with the short porch in New York. I think it'd be a perfect fit.
I like it. And I wanted to pick the Yankees originally as well. And for the reasons you were talking about is why I swayed away. I think they're going to be too in on Soto. That's the outfielder they're going to go after because they've been tied to him pretty heavily, and it sounds like they are making some advances on a deal. So I have him going to a dark horse team in the Toronto Blue Jays. The Blue Jays needed left-handed bats. We saw it last year when they went out and got Dalton Varsho and Kevin Kiermaier. Kevin Kiermaier is a free agent, and I think Bellinger would be the perfect fit into center field. Phenomenal defense, and then he's a left-handed bat that can split up Bo Bichette and Vlad. So I think he'd be a really nice fit out there in Toronto.
No, yeah, I see that for sure. Moving on to number 3, guy we already talked about, Blake Snell. He's been connected with Red Sox, Dodgers, and Padres. And then my pick for him is actually Seattle. There's that sort of on the media trending around where he was at a Seahawks game.
Yeah.
I think he wants to be in Seattle, and I think it's largely just dependent on if the Mariners are willing to go in on a big signing like that.
I agree. I have him signing with Seattle as well. He was born in Seattle. He's been wanting. I mean, it's been known that he's been wanting to go play in Seattle for a while. And we saw him at that Seahawks game. That rotation is already really stacked. You could plug him in there with Castillo, Kirby, Robbie Ray, and Logan Gilbert, and that would be an absolutely deadly five-man rotation. It's just the question of, I mean, are they going to go get him? Dipoto, I mean, he signed Robbie Ray to that big deal, but besides that, his biggest offensive acquisition ever was AJ Pollock at 1 year, $8 million. So is it a question of are they going to be in on him? And I think it would be good for them to sign him because then they have the ability to go trade Gilbert, Miller, Wu, who would be so valuable in the market because they're young pitchers that have so much control that they could go get a big bat to add to that lineup that way as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. And some that's kind of tailed off is early on, it seemed like there was rumblings about Ohtani to Seattle. So I think Seattle might be a little more willing to be buyers right now in the free agent market. And they're not going to get Ohtani, but I think Blake Snell would definitely be something that they'd be willing to pay for.
Yeah, especially if Snell, I mean, we don't like talking about hometown discounts, but it definitely could be if they match or just get close, he could definitely go there. And yeah, I did see they were linked to Ohtani for a while, but it does sound like the reports are that they're kind of out on him now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, keeping it in the Japanese market, we can move over to Yoshinobu Yamamoto. And this kid is absolutely exciting. Who doesn't want a 25-year-old ace?
Exactly. No, and he's been linked to a lot of teams, mainly Yankees, Red Sox, Dodgers, Mets, and Cubs, all the big buyers.
I mean, every team is going to be in on him.
Exactly. No, I mean, this guy's just got so much upside. I mean, he's so young and so good. My pick for
Yeah,
him is the Dodgers, but it might just be just kind of hoping right there with that
yeah,
because I need pitching. Um, there's a lot of stuff about Dodgers trying to get Ohtani and Yamamoto.
it's a lot of money.
A lot of money in two players. But Dodgers need pitching, and Yamamoto would be perfect in that lineup, I think.
Yeah, so Yamamoto has that 45-day posting fee where he has to sign with the team. And it's been reported that he's going to narrow down his finalists before the winter meetings. And then after the winter meetings, he's going to go on a tour. So hopefully soon after the winter meetings, he'll have his decision made and we'll figure out where he's going. Um, John Heyman was reporting today. I was listening to him talk on BR Walk-Off. That original $200 million projection might get blown past and he might touch $300 million, which would just be absolutely insane. But I mean, he's a 25-year-old with a career 1.8 ERA. So I would give him a blank check. And because of that, I have the Mets signing him. I do think that the Mets are going to go in on somebody. I know they're not really expected to win in 24, but pushing towards 2025 is going to be their window. It's just what Cohen's making it seem like. So I think Yamamoto could be a good fit. He said he's wanted to play with other Japanese players, and they have Kodai Senga on that roster. I will say the Cardinals should sign him, and there's a lot of ties to St. Louis, but you can go on those if you want. But
No, I mean, I think with all of the main big teams interested, it's just going to drive up the price. So I wouldn't be very surprised at all if it touched 300 or even more.
yeah, it's just a real question of length. I don't know. I mean, is he going to want a 5-year deal or is he going to want 10, right?
Yeah.
Who
No, and
knows?
he's going to be able to get whatever he wants.
Yeah. If I had to expect, I could see him getting 10 years, but an opt out after year 5 and an opt out after 7.
Yeah.
Realistically.
Speaking of big deals, though, biggest free agent probably ever, Shohei Ohtani is our number one. He's linked Giants, Dodgers, Cubs, Rangers, just anyone with money to spend. Realistically,
Yeah.
this might be a surprise, but I have him going to the Cubs.
Fine.
I think, I mean, again, we've been saying it this whole time. I think Cubs are just all in right now on buying, and he'd be a great fit in Chicago.
Yeah, it's a sad one. I don't want him to go to Chicago. I mean, it would be cool to see him play more often. But I mean, Heyman was reporting today that there's really only a few teams that are still in on him, and the Cubs were one of them. So it's definitely a likely landing spot. I could see the Blue Jays going after him as well. I just think it could be a unique fit. But I'm going with the Dodgers. And I know that's lame, and I know you're not a fan of it. But the same thing that John Heyman was talking about today is that if he was to bet on it, he's picking the Dodgers. So it just kind of seems like the betting odds on favorite right now. But I mean, he's an franchise altering player with his bat. We've already talked about all of his stats, but whoever gets him is going to be insanely lucky. So I have him going to the Dodgers.
Yeah. No, I mean, Otani's a great player. No one's ever going to say different. The only reason I'm not in on him going to the Dodgers as a Dodger fan sort of thing is I'm terrified of locking that much money in a single player. So, I mean, that's why I'm out. But if they got him, it wouldn't be the worst day in the world at all.
No, not at all. And that's why it's franchise altering, not in a good way, but also potentially a scary way because you're locking up a lot of money.
Exactly. Well, I think that's going to do it on episode 2 for us, though.
Oh, we have to end off how we always do in the off season with a
That's right. You have your
trade
trades.
proposal for
I'm
Aven.
excited to hear this.
All right, we did a Dodgers trade last week. We're gonna do a Cardinals one this week, and then we'll branch off into some other ones. But I have the Cardinals receiving Tyler Glasnow. In exchange, the Cardinals will send the Rays Steven Matz, Dylan Carlson, and Michael McGreevy.
Honestly, you kicked out around a couple ideas sort of thing before this with that trade, and that one to me makes the most sense for both teams. I mean, uh, Gosman's a perfect fit in St. Louis, I think, just to add pitching, and then they get Dylan Carlson out of it in Tampa.
Mm-hmm.
I actually see both teams really liking that trade.
Yeah, and the Rays have said they wanted an MLB starter and they want to shed salary. So Steven Matz is only going to get paid 11 mil compared to Glasnow's 25. And Dylan Carlson, he was third in Rookie of the Year 2 years ago. He had 2 down years, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Rays made him into an absolute stud. And then Michael McGreevy's first round pick, I believe in 2019 for the Cardinals. So another pitching prospect that they can add. But Tyler Glasnow is a guy I think the Cardinals should go after. He has arguably the best strikeout stuff in baseball because he has the best extension in baseball. And I mean, with the signings they had, Gray, Lynn, and Gibson all threw 190 innings last year. You can go get Glasnow, and even if he only makes 20 starts, you still have the ability to substitute him with a Libertor, with a Thompson. So I think you've already shored up those innings. Now you got to go make a big splash, and he could be that number 2 we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, no, Gosman's a guy that I think he probably fits in better for what can be traded with St. Louis. But I would just love the Dodgers to go get him.
Yeah,
you guys.
Yeah, Glasnow is going to get some interest, no matter what team you are.
But yeah, no, I mean, I'd love to see the Dodgers go get him, but he's a better Cardinal, I think.
I think he's a good fit. Yeah. But I think that's going to wrap it up for episode 2. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back next week.
Leave a 5-star rating on the podcast, or if you're listening on YouTube, make sure to like it. Tells us to keep on doing this, and we'd really appreciate it.
Definitely. Follow the Twitter as well for some engagements on there. A lot more on there.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for listening, guys. We're out.